is Wednesday, June 27th, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very productive get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Wednesday. I don't know, some of the instructors had the opportunity to go to the Jiu-Jitsu Summit this last weekend, I believe it was. And so, of course, they're abounding with all sorts of new material that they assimilated during this 3-day Jiu-Jitsu extravaganza. And so, yeah, they come back to us with a lot of new technique and a lot of swag that they wanted to share and show around, new gis and all. And so, yeah, it was interesting. We were doing some interesting stuff from I guess I want to say a quarter guard, but I mean it was half guard escapes, and one of which resulted in a choke that I was not very good at getting. But nonetheless, it was very productive. Like I said, it was a bit of a diversion from the normal fare as far as what we normally cover. I mean, we have kind of like a regular curriculum, you know, that the basics that we try and touch on, and then there's always some new element that comes in, you know, and I think that's one of those things that gives you the impression that Jiu-Jitsu really is endless, you know, that there for every move there's a counter move, and a counter move to the counter move, and a security from the counter move to the counter move, and you know, it really is endless. And when you're doing it, it's continuous. But yeah, so it was a very big class today. I had absolutely no trouble whatsoever sorting out who I was going to roll and play with. Unfortunately, we didn't get into any sparring, and it's just as good. My arm is still recovering. You know, I mean, I'm not feeling it as much. It's not as tight as it has been, and it's been a bit of relief to me, you know, to finally be getting to where I can actually roll and feel pretty confident about my arm. But yeah, it's still not 100% yet, and so I'm trying to just take my time with it. You know, it's like I start getting anxious about it. It's like, oh, what if somebody goes after my arm? It's like, you know what? What if they go after your arm? What's going to be the difference between them going after your arm in class and them going after your arm on the street? Absolutely nothing. So, you know, while you have the opportunity to at least review how not to make it, you know, part of the, you know, something that they can address or take away from you or hurt you with, take the opportunity while you're still doing it at quarter speed to really study up on the movement and feel how to avoid the setup. And so far I've been doing okay with that. And actually I think my jiu-jitsu is improving just in making that effort. You know, it's like, okay, a lot of the stuff that I would be really wrenching on this person with my right arm, I got to back off on. You know, but what can I do instead? And what other options are available to me? And something as simple as switching lead hands or something like that kind of goofs people up, you know, especially when they're used to you operating in a certain way. And so it's been interesting to see it from that angle, you know, that when I'm approaching it from a perspective of trying to put more concentration on my left hand side, you know, just to put it simply, how that's really affected the game that other people play, and how it's been kind of counteracting a lot of the stuff that they used to get me with. So anyway, we do have plenty of stuff to go through today. Not as much as normal. I usually have my browser stuffed chock full of goodness to go through, but still, nonetheless, we have plenty of meat to chew on for this evening. And it is with that I want to get into some music. And we haven't been playing a lot of the Black Dahlia Murder, mostly only because I have one album of theirs, that's it. And I need to rectify that at some point or another because they do play some really good music. So here it is, Nightbringers, title track off their latest album, here on Coin Metal. And that was Slipknot with The Devil and I. Sorry about that. I was working on getting the last episode of Coin Metal out. Currently, I'm just putting the meta tags on it right now, just to make sure that y'all know how to find it. Coin Metal, Frank, Dashwood, Bitcoin, Verge, altcoins, DJ E-Rock, 23. That ought to be enough. You ought to be able to find it from that. So now we're going to go ahead and publish. And it's published. We've got the tag here so we can put it back up on Twitter. Because that's what we do. Got to do it. And the latest episode is now available. And I'm just doing this right now because, you know, I've got it right in front of me to do. So, latest episode of Coin Metal. This is so you know that I don't have a bot doing this shit for me. Is now available for your listening pleasure. Well, bam. And so now we'll go ahead and tweet that and get onto this show. Because, like I said, we do have plenty of good stuff that we wanted to get into today. And the first one that I wanted to get into, this is really entertaining because I'm pretty sure I predicted that this would happen with regard to Facebook easing the ban on crypto ads. I'm sure at some point or another somebody said to themselves, we're losing out on ad revenue because every time one of these monkeys would repost, they'd also be sending tags and ads for 8 other things that we've got associated to their account, and now we're not getting that click through, and now we're not getting those funds. So, you know, we should probably change that because people are actually interested in this shit, and they will click on stuff, and that will direct them to web pages that will give us money, and we like money because that's kind of what we're in business for, right? Is money. Jesus fucking Christ. So anyway, I got this article here on CoinDesk. But why? Crypto looks for answers as Facebook eases ad ban. This is by Christine Kim, so clearly no penis. This is authored on June 27th, 2018. Continuing on. It hasn't been a great year so far for Facebook, the social media giant that was once the most popular online platform among America's youth. While roughly half of teens in the U.S. still use Facebook, according to a survey published by the Pew Research Center this year, the company hasn't been receiving much love recently in light of ongoing controversy about data collection and privacy. Like we didn't see that one coming. Indeed, though it was the publicly stated goal of CEO Mark Zuckerberg to meet the issues surrounding user privacy and data collection head on and make 2018, quote, a serious year of self-improvement, one that would restore faith in the promise that, quote, technology would be a decentralizing force. Both the company and its CEO seem stuck in a persisting cloud of scandal. Which is why when Facebook recently announced a change in their advertising policy that would efficiently lift a ban imposed back in January over cryptocurrency-related products and services, some social media observers were quick to interpret this change of heart as a financially motivated act. Duh! But Whale Panda tweeted, a desperate time for Facebook with decline in user growth and ad revenue also went down, so now they're reversing the ban to make some money again. Absolutely. Facebook missed crypto ad money. Yes, absolutely. And that was a tweet by Anita Losica? My apologies, ma'am. Continuing on. However, in the eyes of one Reddit user who works in online advertising, Facebook's decision is nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, it is, quote, totally normal behavior from any major ad platform. Something new comes up, it all gets shut down, and after some more exploration, ad platform allows people back in, they wrote. And looking back on the original announcement published on January 30th by Rob Leithern, Facebook's product management director, Facebook isn't exactly doing a 180 turn by updating their policies. The big picture. The point of the ban at its outset in January was to prohibit ads that, quote, promote financial products and services that are frequently associated with misleading or deceptive promotional practices, such as binary options, initial coin offerings, and cryptocurrency. Binary options, often called all-or-nothing options, as well as initial coin offerings, are still forbidden from being advertised on the company's platform. Moreover, for the point of the ban that has been lifted, namely on cryptocurrency products and services, a separate application process will screen interested parties and assess eligibility for advertising on Facebook based on, quote, licenses they have obtained, whether they are traded on a public stock exchange, and other relevant public background on their business. Leithern emphasized in the post announcing the partial lifting of the crypto ban that given the application process, quote, not everyone who wants to advertise will be able to do so. Bullshit. Facebook's cautious approach is one that has been echoed by other major sites such as Twitter and Google, among others, who continue to prohibit the advertisements of cryptocurrency-related products and services. Yet even the partial change of heart by Facebook on this matter has been taken by certain crypto enthusiasts as a sure sign of the growing popularity of the industry that will soon win over other major players. I'm expecting that, yeah. And you know what? We're going to read some of the tweets here because there's like 8 of them. The first one was by Chris Coerner. Breaking: Facebook is reversing its ban on crypto-related ads. In and of itself, this wasn't a huge deal, but I'm hopeful it will send a signal to others that crypto is here to stay. Blockchain tech, tokenization, and cryptocurrency will touch every aspect of our lives. #bullish. The next one was Philip Nunn. RE Facebook lifting ban. Next will be Google, and then all the big boys will be back advertising, saying this and that, and we are the first regulated blah blah, and then we will have the pump. None of them can ignore $crypto. Watch it fly. And the next one here is by Kevin Steele. Facebook clearly sees the value in blockchain and the future of the industry holds. As there's clearly too much ad revenue potential to ignore, Facebook today announced it's reversing its cryptocurrency ad ban effective immediately. Rumor has it, as might be expected, Tuesday's announcement got the speculation wheels spinning as well. Specifically, Facebook's ad policy change was seen as a signal regarding its own plans around blockchain, sparking renewed conversation about a suspected in-house cryptocurrency or token. Jameson Lopp had tweeted, Facebook is working on its own secret crypto project. It would look pretty bad if they blocked all other crypto projects while promoting their own. Actually, it'd be par for the course, Jameson. Gem. Facebook is reversing its ad ban on cryptocurrency advertisements and will now allow some pre-approved advertisers to promote crypto businesses and services like exchanges. I wonder how long until Facebook releases their own coin. The rumor first began shortly after David Marcus, the company's vice president for its Messenger app division and former president of PayPal, said in a Facebook post he would be, quote, setting up a small group to explore how best to leverage blockchain across Facebook, starting from scratch. 3 days later, on May 11th, Cheddar published an article titled, quote, Facebook plans to create its own cryptocurrency, claiming that the company would explore the creation of its own cryptocurrency as confirmed by people familiar with the company's plans. In addition, other rumors circulating the web have posited that Facebook has plans to buy Coinbase, the largest U.S.-based cryptocurrency exchange by trade volume, which Marcus sits as a member of in the board of directors. CryptoDog tweeted, "What is this I'm hearing? Coinbase wants to buy Facebook?" Pomp, I'm calling it now. Facebook will buy Coinbase and integrate it to serve their $2 billion users to accelerate the digital currency revolution. Rumors that Facebook is interested in buying Coinbase, neither confirmed nor denied by either company. Nevertheless, these rumors remain just that, rumors. And ever since the creation of Facebook's blockchain research team in May, there has yet to be any official statements outlining what exactly they are working on. Yeah. So, there you have it. Facebook. I can see the angle for a conflict of interest. You know, I'm sure that they're looking at it now and saying that at the very least they're missing out on ad revenue just from, like I said, click through that people do, you know. And not necessarily crypto related stuff either, just, you know, like their fucking insurance ads or some shit like that, you know, that those are getting in front of more eyeballs, and that's really where they make their money, right? But in addition to that, though, we have to look at the probability that Facebook is in fact working on their own cryptocurrency, and that wouldn't be unheard of. As a matter of fact, I remember back in, I want to say 2014, 2015, there were various coins that were working on having their own little social networks and having their own exchanges and their own marketplaces and all that other business. And a lot of those got kind of flushed to the side or just flushed out because they couldn't do what they were saying that they were going to do. And I think that the issue that Facebook is going to have is whether or not they decide to be public. If they do decide to do any kind of token, and how public that they're going to be, whether it's going to be like an ICO or whether it will be something where, you know, they create their own cryptocurrency that you mine, you know, make a real slick UI that's, you know, like partially Facebook app, but definitely a miner in the background. Maybe select which currency that you want to mine, but that you would be mining on your own machine and providing Facebook with a little bit of your hashing power, of course. But I've kind of predicted this a few times, like with with regard to cryptojacking. My feeling is that Facebook and others were looking at this as a potential way to monetize their services. And honestly, I feel like it's the most dirtiest, like, underhanded way you can go about it. I think that considering the ways that you want to try and monetize, you have to consider who you're involving in the production of your coin and how much you're going to compensate them for the participation that they're doing. You know, if it's something where you're envisioning that you're not going to pay them jack shit, they're just going to give you their fucking hashing power, then you're going to fuck off, because there's already projects out there that'll blow you out of the water. You know, that people can contribute their content to, and from clicks and various other means, they can be paid for the production of that content. You know, by their base of listeners or readers or whatever the case may be. And I think that Facebook, if they were really, really smart, they would give up on that end of it. You know, I mean, maybe something where you are being directly compensated in some sort of Facebook token that can then be sold on a cryptocurrency exchange. Okay. But that would be a point where Facebook is trying to interface directly with crypto instead of trying to run the game on their own. And I think that the companies that are focusing on trying to run it on their own or take it over, they're going to be sorely disappointed. Because Facebook, I mean, like I said, if they were to do it really smart, they would allow other cryptocurrencies to be transacted directly through Facebook. They would provide some sort of interface. See, I think that cryptocurrency's true function is to allow us to do frictionless transactions between one another, or virtually frictionless, meaning untaxed. And where we'll be selling our goods and services to one another. And not all of them will be digital, of course. Some of them will be hard goods and services. Had to rehydrate there. Really took it out of me at jiu-jitsu, man, let me tell you. But anyway, I think that Facebook, they have a really unique situation on their hands. They could take this so many different ways. And I think the smartest one, honestly, is just to be a platform. You know, be a framework that people could be putting up ads for their goods and services, both locally and interstate and internationally. I mean, because Facebook has a really broad reach of users. They're not just in the U.S. And there's plenty of overlap between you and other countries and other people from other countries. I got people on my friends list that I've been talking to for years online. Years on Facebook. And I've never met these people. You know? I mean, the closest I've gotten to them is seeing their videos that they post on Facebook, or, you know, them watching my videos on Facebook or YouTube or somewhere else. I mean, I've met one or two people from crypto, but like almost all the contact that I've had with people in crypto has been online. And I've talked to people for years about this stuff. And I've used regular public social media for it, you know, Twitter and Facebook. So, you know, I think that they're expanding that kind of interface that they can provide. You know, you can have Amazon and all that shit, but I think the way that we drive it the best is, you know, when we see videos of one another up online, you know, not necessarily some ad from, you know, some contrived ad, even for things that we like. You know, I think it's way better to see the stuff actually in use. You know, like one of my fantasies is to do a video of me going through like Cabela's or Bass Pro Shop and just doing a shopping, you know, and just showing the kind of people, the kind of stuff that I buy. You know, I think that is, and the stuff, and then use it, you know, like have it as the genesis of a fishing trip, starting at like Cabela's or somewhere like that, and then ending with pulling the boat out of the lake at the end of the day. You know, that's, like I said, that's my fantasy, is to shoot a video like that. But I think there's plenty of space in there for honest advertising. You know, nothing really audacious, no celebrities involved or anything like that. It's just, hey, you know what? I use Shimano fishing rods and Shimano fishing reels, and I use such and such line and such hooks and so on and so forth. But I can show you that in process, and I can show you in application, you know, all the way down to when the lure hits the water, you know. But I think that's the new ad space, and you know, Facebook relaxing their stance now. I think that somebody finally got the image in their mind that kind of thing is not only possible now, but that it'll be a bigger part of our future than it is now. You know. So yeah, Facebook changing their stance. I think they're definitely taking a step ahead and looking beyond. But it's really going to depend on how they apply it. And you'll be able to tell in the change in policy on your Facebook. I mean, it'll be fucking obvious. You know, honestly, I think that trusting Facebook to tell you which ICOs and which coins and whatnot are qualified according to their metrics, it's just as dangerous as relying on a federal entity to tell you this shit. You know? Anywho, so we're done with that one. Let's go ahead and drop back down into some music. And I don't think I played any prong last time, but I've been dying to play some fucking prong. And, where is it? Here it is. Rude Awakening. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Rivers of Nile with Hollow. Kind of trying a little experiment here, seeing as I actually live kind of in the future. And I don't have this like entirely futuristic. If it were entirely futuristic, I would have this tied in to like some VR interface, and I'd be like all doing this shit in the air while I'm standing. But I do have a wireless keyboard / mouse combination that makes things a little easier. And I gotta think, I think it's Richard Hart. Yeah, Richard Hart. He's got this fetish, I think, with keyboards. And so he's always doing like keyboard reviews and stuff like that. Or I don't know if he still does those, but he was for a little while. He was like doing these reviews of certain keyboards, and I happen to like the one I've got. It's this older Logitech, and you know it's funny because the design hasn't changed in like, I want to say 5 or 6 years, and you know why? It's because they nailed it. You know, I mean, well, why bother changing it if it works? You know. So anywho, I got this next article here, and this is going to be kind of an adventure because this is the first time I've actually tried to read an article while standing. It's kind of a decision I had to make, you know, to get up off my ass. You know, I put on a few pounds, and I don't know if it was just some supplement that I was taking, or the fact that I was consuming way too much coffee and that has all kinds of sugar and shit in it. Either way, my energy level really hasn't been what it should be despite all of that caffeine. So I'm starting to think to myself, you know, maybe it's not that I'm getting things done faster. Maybe I'm just getting nothing done faster with caffeine. You know, it's just that it makes me so impatient that I like give up on stuff too quick. Anyway, so I've been trying to cut back on my caffeine because I've noticed that a lot of people, myself included, when approaching jiu-jitsu highly caffeinated, tend to be really, really jittery and really, really panicked and harsh with their movements. And it's funny because I've cut back on my own caffeine ingestion, and I'm like 100% smoother than I was before. When I go in, I'd be all like whacked out of my gourd on caffeine, and like I said, I was really jerky, I was really panicky. I wasn't really flowing as much, and so yeah, I think caffeine sucks. That's my 2 cents. Anyway, so the next article I got here is on Bloomberg.com. FBI has 130 cryptocurrency-related investigations, agent says. Dude, that's going to go way up now that Facebook is going to let ads go through again. Anyway, so this is by Lily Katz and Annie Massa. So, no, double no penis. And this is authored June 27th, 2018 at 12:34 p.m. PDT. What's PDT? Pacific Daytime? I don't get it. Continuing on. Federal Bureau of Investigation has 130 cases tied to cryptocurrencies, according to an agent speaking at a digital asset industry conference in New York. The cases threat tagged to virtual currencies encompass crimes such as human trafficking, illicit drug sales, kidnapping, and ransomware attacks, according to Kyle Armstrong, a supervisory special agent. Quote, "There are thousands of cases in the Bureau, so it is a small sliver at this point," Armstrong said at the Crypto Evolved conference Wednesday. The agency has noticed an increase in illegal activity facilitated by digital currency payments, he added. The opioid epidemic in particular has come into focus at the FBI as the, quote, dark web enables a surge in drug abuse. Illegal online marketplaces are where 10% of global drug users make their purchases, said Armstrong, who is in charge of the FBI's virtual currency initiative, which has been around for about 3 years. Read more, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Drug Dealers. That might merit another show or something. I don't know. Not this one. The FBI has also seen a significant rise in extortion schemes related to virtual currencies on the southwest border of the U.S., Armstrong said. While Armstrong said the agency takes a neutral view on digital tokens, he noted several pros and cons. The distributed ledger that underpins blockchain technology makes it easier to trace cryptocurrencies than cash, for example, but the anonymity of transactions can be a hurdle to legal investigations, he said. Yeah, they find out that a mayor or a mayor's kid or a senator's kid or somebody else like that was involved, and then they're like, oh, well, maybe we really don't need to investigate this so much. I'm telling you, that's what happens every single time. Like with Gox, there's all kinds of silence about who was involved. And I mean, the information is available. I'm not saying that it isn't. I'm just saying that when you hear the words Mt. Gox, it's not the first associations that you have to it. The first associations you have usually are, oh wow, yeah, a lot of people lost a shit ton of money. Well, that has been the case and has not been the case as well. There have been, in fact, a couple instances now, I guess, of reparations having been made to the entities that were wronged or that lost a shit ton of money. When the quote unquote hack happened. And I say quote unquote because, it's just as likely an engineered event. But in any case, with regard to illegal activity occurring with cryptocurrencies, let's be honest, folks. How much, what do these crimes represent in percentage of his caseload, involving money? I'm sure that from that perspective, if he were to be asked that, he'd say it's like 0.001% of their financial crimes involve cryptocurrencies in any way, shape, or form. So it's kind of, how should I say, disingenuous to be all up in arms about 130 cryptocurrency-related investigations. Now, don't get me wrong, there's plenty to investigate. And I'm not against the FBI trying to thwart quote-unquote crime. However, I do kind of have to take issue with their way of addressing this. I mean, it's Bloomberg, so what do you expect? But like ransomware, that's one of those things where I really think that it's a live test of a taxation model. Imagine a world where everything is interconnected on the IoT and fucking internet, right? Like the keys to your house, keys to your car, the ignition of your car, your internet connection, your electricity, water and gas services to your house. Imagine all of these things are all connected on the IoT. Your refrigerator, all of the appliances in your kitchen, your television, your Xbox. All of these things are all IoT'd, right? Now imagine for a moment that for some reason or another you end up financially delinquent to the government. You haven't paid a fee, or you've managed to avoid paying taxes for some reason or another. What if they decided, okay, well, you just don't need electricity, and you don't need to be using your car, or your internet, or your refrigerator. We're just gonna fucking DDoS your house, your existence. We're gonna DDoS your existence. All of your digital records, all of your everything. We're gonna DDoS that shit. And you're not going to be able to do a damn thing. You're going to have to report into some police office or some federal agency and work out a way to make this right. Because otherwise you're not going to be able to get back into your house. You're not going to be able to use your car. If you do get into your house, you're not going to be able to get into your refrigerator. So you see where that possibility goes? And I think that when you start putting those things together with the dissuasion of people making their own gardens through homeowners associations and whatnot, telling you not to plant gardens in your front yard. I mean, why not? It's your fucking land, right? Why should they have any say over what you do with it? But if you consider it in terms of the government is the only source of food, because all the places you used to hunt are old tract houses now, and basically all the sources of food are these huge conglomerates like Monsanto, and you're eating GMOs. And it's all tied into your, you post the wrong fucking thing on Facebook. Yeah, they're doing that kind of thing in China, where they're grading your the merit of your being based on what you're posting on social media and what your social media activity is. Can you believe that shit? But here it is. Grading socially people based on their social media activity. I find that really offensive. I mean, because it's not at all what we intended by doing it. You know, it was just sharing. And look at the value that we've gotten out of that sharing. You know, my dad and I were watching a video on YouTube the other day of, I think it was 15 great homemade inventions or something like that. And if you watched it really, really closely, you figured out that most of this experimentation was happening in places that do not have an environmental protection agency or some fucking federal regulator telling them how to make machinery, because these people are just freeballing it, man. There's no safety shrouds on anything, man. Your arm goes into that saw, you got to go to the hospital. But the thing is that none of it's happening in the United States, or at least very little of it was happening in the United States. And what does that really tell you? It tells me that the whole regulatory vernacular has tightened to the extent that a lot of Americans don't feel comfortable either putting up what inventions they have made like that, you know, because they're afraid they're going to get sued, you know. They're afraid some employment agency or some federal regulator is going to come down on them, or some state regulator is going to come down on them. And that really shouldn't be the case. You should not have to fear your government like that. Your government should be a fucking servant, you know, protecting you from hordes of armies and shit from other nations. That's what a government's supposed to do. It's not supposed to be telling you not to innovate. It's not supposed to be putting a fucking arm on your throat telling you not to develop things that will put this country at a temporary, at least, advantage over other countries. I mean, why would you want to do that, man? It's sad. You know, especially in the world now that the sources of the socially changing things, the socially altering movements, have been the products of things that people like you and I have created, like Facebook. In and of itself, that was all people like you and me. I mean, there were people involved that, you know, had financial advantage and financial connections and whatnot, but big fucking whoop-de-doo. The fact of the matter is it took people staying up all night, writing fucking code, working shit out to get Facebook to where it is. You know, and that means that you could be the next person to crank out a Facebook. You know, not a federal entity. They're not the source of these things. You are the source of these things. I think that was the thing that I took most exception with Mr. Obama with, was when he said that you didn't build that. Bullshit. You fucking built it. I don't give a fuck if there was all kinds of society around you that was kind of supporting you and whatnot. Nobody else did this shit. Because if they had done it, we wouldn't be talking about you. We would be talking about them. The end product, the thing that people are using or buying, or the service that people are getting from you, that, you built that. You know? I just, like I said, I take exception with that. Like I said, the whole vocabulary and vernacular of the society you're in and whatnot can provide guidance, but not necessarily produce the thing. It's like Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin is the product of people like you and me. I know, because I was kind of one of those people helping it along. But like thousands of others. And my hope is that that's going to be millions of others in the next 2 years. That enough of you will be kind of looking at the challenge that's really being addressed with Bitcoin, how it's addressing it, determining whether it's addressing it the best way, and going forward from there. You know, whether or not your project will be a Bitcoin replacement, or a potential Bitcoin replacement or competitor at least, or whether your service will concentrate on using cryptocurrencies as the means of exchange, as the medium of exchange. Personally, I think if more of us focus on the latter, that'd be really great. Because the development of markets, and we were talking about this the other day on about, I think it was Italy, or there's some like Valley of Crypto or Crypto Valley or some shit like that in I think it's Sicily. And they're developing the market loops that you need in order to create a crypto-based economy. You know, where you have suppliers that are taking payment in cryptocurrency. You know, and then you have producers that are taking the supplies and making products and getting paid for their effort in cryptocurrency. And then you have retailers who are then selling those products for cryptocurrency. That's the loop that you need going. And as much as I like to say that Bitcoin is the coin for that, I think that the current network metrics and the proposed solutions, I put it at a second to Bitcoin Cash, honestly, but only because Bitcoin Cash has enough actual capacity to be able to address more than a few thousand transactions every 10 minutes. And I know there's people that put a lot of hope on Lightning, but I think it should be pretty obvious by now that it will be a highly regulated, highly centralized system, and it'll take most of the value out of Bitcoin. I mean, there will still be the fiat inflation on Bitcoin that will cause the price to rise, but that's only because it's rising in relative terms to everything else. You know, it still costs money to generate electricity in some areas. And so people wanting to sell their coins from those areas, they're not going to be able to make as much as they did during the December bubble. But nonetheless, they will get by for the time being. So anyway, the FBI and their 130 cryptocurrency-related investigations, I'm sure if they dedicated just as much time to fiat, to fiat investigations, they would probably net 10 times as much actual value in terms of fees and compliance issues. People out of compliance. Link up with the SEC and the CFTC. Start reviewing companies on the Dow. It really, if you want to talk about something that will get ahead of any kind of future financial calamity, it would be for the FBI to start dedicating a lot more time to linking up with the CFTC and the SEC in their investigations, and start looking into banks. Because, as threatening as cryptocurrencies might be to banks and their model of doing things, cryptocurrencies exist because of the issues that banks have created in our economy. And that's, I don't know if that was a product of malice or just human nature or whatever. And I'm at a point now where I don't really want to attribute anything to malice that could just as easily be blamed on human stupidity. Because we aren't all that intelligent. We get led around really easy. Anyway, it's with that I'd like to transition to this next article here. And we're going to find out again and again and again that these kind of statements are just people wasting air. That ultimately, they're taking payments in cryptocurrencies. They are directly related in cryptocurrencies. Some way, shape, or form, they are in it already. This is on ccn.com, and let's check and verify, make sure it's the actual article. Yes, it is. U.S. lawmakers call to halt crypto use in facilitating illicit activities. Woo! This is on June 27th, 2018. The U.S. House of Representatives has passed a bill requiring the Comptroller General of the United States to propose laws and regulations to put an end to drug and sex trafficking after examining how cryptocurrencies and online marketplaces facilitate these activities. The bill, which we are going to probably try and read today, H.R. 6069, sponsored by Representative Juan Vargas, is titled Fight Illicit Networks and Detect Traffic Act of 2018. Find. The bill would allow Congress to develop ways to regulate the use of virtual currencies to prevent illegal drug sales and sex trafficking. Vargas said he hopes to see the same level of support for the bill in the U.S. Senate. Payment anonymity cited. The anonymity permitted by virtual currencies has made them a significant means of payment for illicit activities, including bribery, according to a press release about the bill. These activities are believed to be the most detrimental activities that online marketplaces and the dark web enable. The Drug Enforcement Administration's 2017 National Drug Assessment reported that criminal organizations are increasing their use of virtual currencies for these activities, the bill notes. It further notes that virtual currencies and illegal online marketplaces are contributing to the country's opioid crisis. Bullshit! According to the... you want to know what's contributing to this country's opioid crisis? Our occupation of Afghanistan. Done. According to the U.S. Treasury Department, virtual currencies are designed to meet a legitimate market need, the bill notes. In addition, according to a Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago economist, U.S. consumers are seeking versatile payment options that provide immediate finality that no payment method meets. And actually, cryptocurrencies already meet that. So this idea that no payment method meets it, that's a bunch of bullshit. Virtual currencies, however, can provide cash's anonymity and immediate finality and are more versatile than cash for cross-border payments and online transactions. Hence, virtual currencies are vulnerable for illicit transactions. Give me a fucking break. Bill seeks answers. The bill instructs the Comptroller General to determine how payment methods facilitate the buying, selling, and financing of these illicit activities. It specifically seeks an explanation of how illicit funds sent via virtual currencies are repatriated into the regular banking system via money laundering or any other methods. The bill also wants the Comptroller to determine how both state and non-state actors benefit from or participate in the selling, buying, and financing of services that are associated with these illegal activities. One goal is to identify how state and federal agencies can halt the commerce of these activities, as well as what efforts will prevent the proceeds from such activities from entering the U.S. banking system. Can virtual currency help law enforcement? The bill also recognizes the possibility of using virtual currency technology to prevent these activities. No, it can't. As it calls on the government to identify how the technology can deter and detect such activities. It calls for an understanding of how virtual currencies' traceable and immutable nature can help track and prosecute illegal funding activities. The Comptroller is required to submit a report summarizing its study 1 year following the law's enactment to both the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Financial Services and the Senate's Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. Yeah, whatever. You know what, we're going to jump into the comments because I love the comments for these things. The first one is by Marshall Elliott. The government just wants to be able to tax crypto, plain and simple. They can't stop drug and sex activity ever. Just ask Nancy Reagan. Yep. The next one is by Edicted, and that was this one's a response to Marshall. Yes, it's very clear that these excuses are extremely flimsy. Why don't you regulate cash in these same terms? Oh wait, you can't. That's the whole point. The next one is Deplorable Dennis. Here we go. Does the Secret Service stop the use of U.S. dollars abroad on drugs and sex trade? They're going to throat a private global libertarian currency while letting dollars flow like blood in third world countries used to buy sex trade, guns, drugs, etc. The only time they should be involved is when you sell crypto for fiat. I can't fathom how they can just muscle into global unregulated trade, regulate within your own borders. No, you can't even regulate within your own borders. It's global unregulated trade. Do you know what this means? Do you know what this means? Crypto is just like fiat currency. And this is by Keith Roby, or Keith Robbie, rather. And Never Surrender. In terms of tracking, I'd say it's worse. It calls for an understanding of how virtual currency's traceable and immutable nature can help track and prosecute illicit funding activities. For those idiots out there. Yeah, you know what's going to happen? They're going to do these investigations, right? And then they're going to find out that the person who initiated the investigation, or is heading the committee that's funding or forwarding the investigation themselves, they're going to find out that one of these people is directly heavily invested in cryptocurrencies, or that this person is being funded by cryptocurrencies, and then they're going to shut the fuck up and get disbanded. That's pretty much my prediction on that. That this will either be fruitless and then nothing, or fruitless and maybe scandal. Because it might come out that such and such a person is actually receiving funds via cryptocurrencies that they should not have, or they accepted cryptocurrencies from entities they should not have, and then everybody will just shut the fuck up because we'll be talking about tens of millions of dollars. It'll be like during one of the big bumps, you like, oh shit, that's my re-election campaign funds right there that you're talking about seizing and taxing and fucking out from under me. No, I'm not going to vote for that thing. I'm amazed that it got past the House, honestly. Apparently the banking entities out there have a bit more hold over them than one might imagine. But it really doesn't matter. None of this shit matters. I'll be honest. None of it really matters. In the greater context of shit, this does not matter. It's a bump in the road. These people are going to be like Facebook. They're going to try to apply their fucking laws and try to apply their taxation and their regulation, and then they're going to notice that a lot of the innovation, a lot of the new development, it doesn't involve anybody in the United States. It's involving only Chinese and Icelanders and Canadians and Australians and not the United States. Russians, but not the United States. They're going to say, oh, wait a minute. This is a global event. This isn't just happening in the United States. I mean, we've got a lot of money and people spend a lot on miners and shit and do a lot of trading here, but we're not the center of the universe here. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Because we're just canceling ourselves out of the market. We're not actually stopping the market. We're just stopping our participation in it. Or at least the participation that we can monitor, track, tax, whatever. I'm telling you, this is nothing short of the fucking the mad quagmire of the 21st century, mutually assured destruction. That was the rule in the 80s and 90s and a little bit into the 90s before we renegotiated all that business. But it was an idea that if one of us struck the other, U.S. striking China or Russia, would result in us being ourselves destroyed by Russia or China or other entities that have nukes. And this maintained a tenuous balance, or at least a pretext or context for a balance of peace. And it was the Cold War and all that. But I really think that that's what we're facing in crypto right now. That we have a lot of entities looking, they're all poking at it with a stick, trying to figure out, which one is going to be leading the whole pack here. And I think that sooner or later, we're all going to come to the realization that a 15-year-old in Uzbekistan has as much control over this shit as you do. And I don't give a fuck if you're talking about the president or the head of the Federal Reserve or the comptroller of currency or comptroller general of the United States. Any of these people has as much dominion over cryptocurrencies as that. I mean, we're seeing it in the market with Bitcoin. And a lot of people like to read it on a price-only basis. But that's just one factor in crypto. One of many. And I think over the next year, we are going to see more and more interest drift away from Bitcoin as long as they're pig-headed about this 1 megabyte block limit. Or block size limit. Unless they get onto 64 megabytes... Bitcoin Cash is going to eat their lunch. And that's just my analysis on that. And please don't trade based on that. That's just how I feel as far as using cryptocurrencies as a means of monetary exchange. Which is what they were originally designed to be. And, again, all of these entities are going to be trying to poke at it. And they're going to realize really quick that the way that they're poking at it is harming it, and pushing, and not actually harming it, just pushing it further out of their own reach. So it's with that, I want to go ahead and throw back down into some music. Got some Gizmochi here, Burn, here on Coin Metal. And that was Crowbar with Conquering. And so, I managed to track down the Fight Illicit Networks and Detect Trafficking Act, H. Rep. 115-781, 115th Congress, 2017 to 2018 Committee Report. June 25th, 2018, committed to the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union and ordered to be printed. Mr. Henserling from the Committee on Financial Services submitted the following report to accompany H.R. 6069. Let me do something here really quick here. There we go. Go ahead and scroll. Let's see. The Committee on Financial Services, to whom was referred the bill H.R. 6069 to require the Comptroller General of the United States to carry out a study on how virtual currencies and online marketplaces are used to buy, sell, or facilitate the financing of goods or services associated with sex trafficking, or drug trafficking, or for other purposes. Having considered the same, report favorably thereon with an amendment, and recommend that the bill as amended do pass. The amendment is as follows. Strike all after the enacting clause and insert the following. Section 1, short title. This act may be cited as the Fight Illicit Networks and Detect Trafficking Act or the Find Trafficking Act. Section 2, findings. The Congress finds the following. Number 1, according to the Drug Enforcement Agency, I keep wanting to say agency, but it's administration, 2017 National Drug Threat Assessment, transnational criminal organizations are increasingly using virtual currencies. Why wouldn't they? Number 2, the Treasury Department has recognized that, quote, the development of virtual currencies is an attempt to meet a legitimate market demand. Absolutely. According to a Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago economists, U.S. consumers want payment options that are versatile and that provide immediate finality. No U.S. payment method meets that description, although cash may come closest. Virtual currencies can mimic cash's immediate finality and anonymity and are more versatile than cash for online and cross-border transactions, making virtual currencies vulnerable for illicit transactions. Bribery. Number 3, virtual currencies have become a prominent method to pay for goods and services associated with illegal sex trafficking and drug trafficking, which are two of the most detrimental and troubling illegal activities facilitated by online marketplaces. Bullshit! Sorry. Number 4. Online marketplaces, including the dark web, have become a prominent platform to buy, sell, and advertise for illicit goods and services associated with sex trafficking and drug trafficking. Number 5. According to the International Labor Organization, in 2016, 4.8 million people in the world were victims of forced sexual exploitation, and in 2014, the global profit from commercial sexual exploitation was $99 billion. You'll notice that's denominated in US dollars. 6. In 2016, within the United States, the Center for Disease Control established that there were 64,000 deaths related to drug overdoses, and the most severe increase in drug overdoses were those associated with fentanyl and fentanyl analogs, synthetic opioids, which amounted to over 20,000 overdose deaths. According to number 7, according to the U.S. Department of the Treasury 2015 National Money Laundering Risk Assessment, an estimated $64 billion is generated annually from U.S. drug trafficking sales. Number 8. Illegal fentanyl in the United States originates primarily from China and is readily available to purchase through online marketplaces. Now, that's something I was not aware of. Section 3, GAO study. A, or Section A rather, or subsection A, or A. Study required. The Comptroller General of the United States shall conduct a study on how virtual currencies and online marketplaces are used to facilitate sex and drug trafficking. The study shall consider, number 1, how online marketplaces, including the dark web, are being used as platforms to buy, sell, or facilitate the financing of goods or services associated with sex trafficking or drug trafficking, specifically opioids and synthetic opioids, including fentanyl, fentanyl analogs, and any precursor chemicals associated with manufacturing fentanyl or fentanyl analogs, destined for, originating from, or within the United States. Number 2, how financial payment methods, including virtual currencies and peer-to-peer mobile payment services, are being utilized by online marketplaces to facilitate the buying, selling, or financing of goods and services associated with sex or drug trafficking destined for, originating from, or within the United States. Number 3. How virtual currencies are being used to facilitate the buying, selling, or financing of goods and services associated with sex or drug trafficking destined for, originating from, or within the United States when an online platform is otherwise involved. Is not otherwise involved. My apologies. Number 4. How illicit funds that have been transmitted online through virtual currencies are repatriated into the formal banking system of the United States through money laundering or other means. Number 5. The participants, state and non-state actors throughout the entire supply chain that participate in or benefit from buying, selling, or financing of goods and services associated with sex or drug trafficking, either through online marketplaces or virtual currencies destined for, originating from, or within the United States. Number 6. Federal and state agency efforts to impede the buying, selling, or financing of goods and services associated with sex or drug trafficking destined for, originating from, or within the United States, including efforts to prevent the proceeds from sex or drug trafficking from entering the United States banking system. Number 7. How virtual currencies and their underlying technologies can be used to detect and deter these illicit activities. And number 8, to what extent can the immutable and traceable nature of virtual currencies contribute to the tracking and prosecution of illicit funding? B. Scope. For the purposes of the study required under subsection A, the term sex trafficking means the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, obtaining, patronizing, or soliciting of a person from the purpose or for the purpose of a commercial sex act that is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or in which the person induced to perform such an act has not attained 18 years of age. Think about the children. C. Report to Congress. Not later than 1 year after the date of enactment of this act, the Comptroller General of the United States shall submit to the Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs of the Senate and the Committee on Financial Services of the House of Representatives a report summarizing the results of the study required under subsection A, together with any recommendations for legislative or regulatory action that would improve the efforts of federal agencies to impede the use of virtual currencies and online marketplaces in facilitating sex and drug trafficking. I am telling you, they're going to do this report. They're going to find out half the people in the fucking room are involved in transacting in cryptocurrencies for the purposes of patronizing prostitutes and buying drugs, or buying drugs. And then they're going to be like, yeah, we don't necessarily need to do this. Purpose and summary. On June 12, 2018, Representatives Juan Vargas introduced H.R. 6069, the, quote, Fight Illicit Networks and Detect Trafficking Act, or the Find Trafficking Act. The legislation would require the Comptroller General of the United States to carry out a study on how virtual currencies and online marketplaces are used to buy, sell, or facilitate the financing of goods or services associated with sex trafficking or drug trafficking. Dude, I'm telling you, between those two vices, they're going to pin something on everybody in the room, or at least half of them. Not later than 1 year after enactment, the legislation would require the Comptroller General to submit the report to the Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs and the Committee on Financial Services a report that summarizes the results of the study and includes recommendations for legislation or regulatory action that would improve the efforts of federal agencies to impede the use of virtual currencies and online marketplaces in facilitating drug and sex trafficking. Background and need for legislation. The goal of H.R. 6069 is to have the Government Accountability Office, GAO, study and report to Congress on how virtual currencies and online marketplaces are used to buy, sell, or facilitate the financing of goods or services associated with sex trafficking and drug trafficking. The GAO study must also include any legislative or regulatory actions that would improve the efforts of the federal agencies to impede the use of virtual currencies and online marketplaces in facilitating sex trafficking and drug trafficking. H.R. 6069 complements the work of the President's Commission on Combating Drug Addiction and the Opioid Crisis, which issued its final report on November 1, 2017. The report noted the administration will employ tools to disrupt the flow of illicit drugs into our country and reduce drug trafficking domestically. Okay. The final report recommended to the President that, quote, federal law enforcement agencies expressly target drug trafficking organizations and other individuals who produce and sell counterfeit pills, including through the internet. The study will also include a review of how the dark net is used to facilitate illicit activity, including the buying and selling of opioids, and how virtual currencies and peer-to-peer mobile payment services are exploited. The study will also review how illicit funds are repatriated into the formal banking system of the United States through money laundering. According to the Drug Enforcement Administration's 2017 National Drug Threat Assessment, transnational criminal organizations are increasingly using virtual currencies. Although virtual currencies can be used for legal purposes, they have become a preferred financial payment method for criminals. Virtual currencies also have become a prominent method to pay for goods and services associated with illegal sex trafficking and drug trafficking, which are two of the most detrimental and troubling illegal activities facilitated by online marketplaces. Online marketplaces, including the dark web, have become a prominent platform to buy, sell, and advertise for illicit goods and services associated with sex trafficking and drug trafficking. I'm going to tell you something right now. I've been involved since 2009, and I've had to specifically look for things that are associated with drugs and or cryptocurrencies. This was not something that I found on Facebook. This is not something that was on my Twitter feed. This is something I actually had to look for. So, I don't know who all these people are that are fucking and buying drugs via cryptocurrencies online, but I really think this whole thing is a bit alarmist, and yeah, they could probably find more drug dealing and prostitution in D.C., in front of the nation's capital. Probably out in front of Congress, too. Continuing on. Let's see, where do we lose it here? There we are. Virtual currencies also have become a prominent method to pay for goods and services associated with illegal sex trafficking and drug trafficking, which are two of the most detrimental and troubling illegal activities facilitated by online marketplaces. Online marketplaces, including the dark web, have become a prominent platform to buy, sell, and advertise for illicit goods and services associated with sex trafficking and drug trafficking. According to the International Labor Organization, in 2016, 4.8 million people in the world were victims of forced sexual exploitation. And in 2014, the global profit from commercial sexual exploitation was $99 billion. Dollars. not Bitcoin, dollars. In 2016, within the United States, the Center for Disease Control estimated there were 64,000 deaths related to drug overdose. The most severe increase in drug overdoses were those associated with fentanyl and fentanyl analogs. According to the U.S. Department of the Treasury's 2015 National Money Laundering Risk Assessment, an estimated $64 billion is generated annually from U.S. drug trafficking sales, including fentanyl in the United States, originates primarily from China, and it is readily available to purchase through online marketplaces. Hearings. The Committee on Financial Services Subcommittee on Terrorism and Illicit Finance held a hearing examining matters relating to H.R. 6069 on June 8, 2017, March 15, 2018, and March 20, 2018. Committee consideration. The Committee on Financial Services met in open session on June 14, 2018, and ordered H.R. 6069 to be reported favorably to the House, as amended by a recorded vote of 53 yeas to 0 nays. Recorded vote number FC-187, a quorum being present before the motion to report was offered. The committee adopted an amendment offered by Mr. Emer by voice vote. Committee votes. Clause 3B of Rule 13 of the Rules of the House of Representatives requires the committee to list the recorded votes on the motion to report legislation and amendments thereto. The sole recorded vote was on a motion by Chairman Henserling to report the bill favorably to the House as amended. The motion was agreed to by a recorded vote of 53 yeas to 0 nays. Recorded vote FC-187, a quorum being present. Committee Oversight Findings. Pursuant to Clause 3C1 of Rule 13 of the Rules of the House of Representatives, the findings and recommendations of the committee based on oversight activities under Clause 2B1 of Rule 10 of the Rules of the House of Representatives are incorporated into the descriptive portions of this report. Performance Goals and Objectives. With respect to Clause 3C4 of Rule 13 of the Rules of the House of Representatives, the committee advises that the bill contains no measure that authorizes funding, so no statement of general performance goals and objectives for which any measure authorizes funding is required. New budget authority, entitlement authority, and tax expenditures. In compliance with Clause 3C2 of Rule 13 of the Rules of the House of Representatives, the committee adopts as its own the estimate of new budget authority, entitlement authority, or tax expenditures or revenues contained in the cost estimate prepared by the Director of the Congressional Budget Office pursuant to Section 402 of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974. Congressional Budget Office Estimates. Pursuant to Clause 3C3 of Rule 13 of the Rules of House of Representatives, the following is the cost estimate provided by the Congressional Budget Office pursuant to Section 402 of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974. U.S. Congress, Congressional Budget Office, Washington, D.C., June 22, 2018. Honorable Jeb Henserling, Chairman, Committee on Financial Services, House of Representatives, Washington, D.C. Dear Mr. Chairman, the Congressional Budget Office has prepared the enclosed cost estimate for H.R. 6069, the Fines Trafficking Act. If you wish further details on this estimate, we will be pleased to provide them. The CBO staff contact is Matthew Pickford. Sincerely, Keith Hall, Director, Enclosure H.R. 6069, the Fine Trafficking Act. H.R. 6069 would direct the Government Accountability Office, GAO, to provide a study for the Congress within 1 year on how virtual currencies and online marketplaces are used to facilitate sex and drug trafficking. The study would include recommendations for federal actions. Based on the costs of similar studies, the CBO estimates that it would cost less than $500,000 over the 2019-2020 period for GAO to complete the study. Any spending would be subject to the availability of appropriated funds. Enacting H.R. 6069 would not affect direct spending or revenues, therefore pay-as-you-go procedures do not apply. CBO estimates that enacting H.R. 6069 would not increase net direct spending or on-budget deficits in any of the 4 consecutive 10-year periods beginning in 2029. H.R. 6069 contains no intergovernmental or private sector mandates as defined in the Unfunded Mandates Reform Act. The CBO staff contact for this estimate is Matthew Pickford. The estimate was reviewed by H. Samuel Pappenfuss, Deputy Assistant Director for Budget Analysis. Federal Mandates Statement. This information is provided in accordance with Section 423 of the Unfunded Mandates Reform Act of 1995. The committee has determined that the bill does not contain federal mandates on the private sector. The committee has determined that the bill does not impose a federal intergovernmental mandate on state, local, or tribal governments. Advisory Committee Statement. No advisory committees within the meaning of Section 5B of the Federal Advisory Committee Act were created by this legislation. Applicability to legislative branch. The committee finds that the legislation does not relate to the terms and conditions of employment or access to public services or accommodations within the meaning of this Section 102B3 of the Congressional Accountability Act. Earmark identification. With respect to Clause 9 of Rule 21 of the Rules of the House of Representatives, the committee has carefully reviewed the provisions of the bill and states that the provisions of the bill do not contain any congressional earmarks, limited tax benefits, or limited tariff benefits within the meaning of the rule. Duplication of federal programs. In compliance with Clause 3C5 of Rule 13 of the Rules of the House of Representatives, the committee states that no provisions of the bill establishes or reauthorizes, number 1, a program of the federal government known to be duplicative of another federal program, number 2, a program included in any report from Government Accountability Office to Congress pursuant to Section 21 of Public Law 111-139, or 3, a program related to a program identified in the most recent catalog of federal domestic assistance, published pursuant to the Federal Program Information Act, Publication L number 95-220 or through 220, as amended by Public L number 98-169. Disclosure of directed rulemaking. Pursuant to Section 3I of H.Res. 5, 115th Congress, the following statement is made concerning directed rulemakings. The committee estimates that the bill requires no directed rulemakings within the meaning of such section. Section-by-section analysis of the legislation. Section 1, short title. This section cites H.R. 6069 as the Fight Illicit Networks and Detecting Trafficking Act, or the Find Trafficking Act. Section 2. Findings. The Congress finds the following. Number 1. According to the Drug Enforcement Agency 2017 National Drug Threat Assessment, transnational criminal organizations are increasingly using virtual currencies. Number 2, the Treasury Department has recognized that the development of virtual currencies is an attempt to meet a legitimate market demand. Absolutely. Let's see, where is it? According to the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago economist, U.S. consumers want payment options that are versatile and provide immediate finality. No U.S. payment method meets that description, although cash may come closest. And, I feel like I've read all this shit before. Virtual currencies can mimic cash's immediate finality and anonymity and are more versatile than cash for online and cross-border transactions, making virtual currencies vulnerable for illicit transactions. Number 3. Virtual currencies have become a prominent method to pay for goods and services associated with illegal sex trafficking and drug trafficking, which are two of the most detrimental and troubling illegal activities facilitated by online marketplaces. But they're not the only ones. Number 4. Online marketplaces, including the dark web, have become a prominent platform to buy, sell, and advertise for illicit goods and services associated with sex trafficking and drug trafficking. Number 5. According to the International Labor Organization, in 2016, 4.8 million people in the world were victims of sexual exploitation, and in 2014, the global profit from commercial sexual exploitation was $99 billion. Number 6. In 2016, within the United States, the Center for Disease Control estimated that there were 64,000 deaths related to drug overdoses, and the most severe increase in drug overdoses were those associated with fentanyl and fentanyl analogs, synthetic opioids, which amounted to over 20,000 overdose deaths. Number 7. According to the U.S. Department of Treasury 2015 Money Laundering Risk Assessment, an estimated $64 billion is generated annually from U.S. drug trafficking sales. Number 8. Illegal fentanyl in the United States originates primarily from China, and it is readily available to purchase through online marketplaces. And I am pretty sure I did read that. Let's see here. In Section 3, the GAO study. The GAO study shall include a review of number 1, how online marketplaces, including the dark web, are being used as platforms to buy, sell, or facilitate the funding of goods, or the financing of goods or services associated with sex trafficking or drug trafficking, specifically opioids and synthetic opioids, including fentanyl analogs, and any precursor chemicals associated with manufacturing fentanyl or fentanyl analogs, destined for, originating from, or within the United States. Number 2. How financial payment methods, including virtual currencies and peer-to-peer mobile payment services, are being utilized by online marketplaces to facilitate the buying, selling, or financing of goods and services associated with sex or drug trafficking, destined for, originating from, or within the United States. Number 3. How virtual currencies are being used to facilitate the buying, selling, or financing of goods and services associated with drug or sex trafficking, destined for, originating from, or within the United States, when the online platform is not otherwise involved. Number 4. how illicit funds that have been transmitted online through virtual currencies are repatriated into the formal banking system of the United States through money laundering or other means. Number 5. The participants, state and non-state actors, throughout the entire supply chain that participate in or benefit from the buying, selling, or financing of goods and services associated with sex or drug trafficking, either through online marketplaces or virtual currencies, destined for, originating from, or within the United States. Number 6. Federal and state agency efforts to impede the buying, selling, or financing of goods and services associated with sex or drug trafficking destined for, originating from, or within the United States, including efforts to prevent the proceeds from sex or drug trafficking from entering the United States banking system. Number 7. How virtual currencies and their underlying technologies can be used to detect and deter those illicit activities. And number 8, to what extent can immutable and traceable nature of virtual currencies contribute to the tracking and prosecution of illicit funding? For the purposes of the study required, the term, quote, sex trafficking means the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, obtaining, patronizing, or soliciting of a person for the purpose of a commercial sex act that it is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or in which the person induced to perform such an act has not attained 18 years of age. Not later than 1 year after the date of enactment of this act, the Comptroller General of the United States shall submit to the Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs of the Senate and the Committee on Financial Services of the House of Representatives a report summarizing the results of the study required, together with any recommendations for the legislative or regulatory action that would improve the efforts of the federal agencies to impede the use of virtual currencies and online marketplaces in facilitating sex and drug trafficking. Changes in existing law will be made by the bill, as reported. H.R. 6069 does not repeal or amend any section of a statute. Therefore, the Office of Legislative Counsel did not prepare the report contemplated by the Clause 3E 1B of the Rule 13 of the House of Representatives. And so, yeah, apparently these people think that there's a lot of drug and sex trafficking going on in the cryptosphere, and that it's illegal or coercive or some other business, and they're going to do a report to find out how cryptocurrencies facilitate that shit, and yeah, and determine some sort of legislative action. Personally, I think they're going to come up with bupkis. They're going to take a look at it. They're going to see that the vast majority of quote-unquote illicit activity and quote-unquote money laundering is two sections of people. Number one, people that are funding the election campaigns of government officials. And number two, people who are conducting otherwise legitimate commerce and trading with cryptocurrencies. That's what they're going to find. Those are the primary utilizations of cryptocurrencies. That's what they're going to find out. And again, the overall effect of this, I think, is just going to be that they're going to create a study. And the study is going to produce some data, and they're going to determine based on that data whether or not any kind of action actually needs to take place. And I think at the very end of it, they're going to determine no. The CBO doesn't have to do anything, Senate doesn't have to do anything, Congress doesn't have to do anything. The fucking transaction either happens or it doesn't fucking happen. Period. That's it. What kind of fucking regulation do you need for that? Anywho, it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. We will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want you all to trade safe. Do your homework. Watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Not even these guys. CBO. And it's with that I want to close this out with our last dance, Disturbed. Shout. Amazing redo, by the way, I gotta say. Y'all have an excellent evening.